Welcome to the Moondog Training Area. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about emergencies with pets. Do you have an emergency plan with your pets? Are they included? With some recent disasters going on, this is a very important part of your everyday preparedness that you should have for every household. So when we say emergency for pets, we're talking about natural disasters. So we have fires, you have wildland fires or structure fire. We have floods, both flash floods and the slower rising water, earthquakes, extreme cold, extreme heat. You could also have extreme snowfalls, anything like that. Any type of natural disaster that that you would be worried about in your particular area. Do you have a plan? So some things you need to ask yourself is, what will you do if there is an emergency? Have you practiced anything in your family? Do you have a plan? Does this plan include any of your animals or your pets? Do you have a to-go bag ready? We'll talk a little bit about to-go bags here in a minute. And will somebody know if there are pets on your property? If you need to leave very quick, does somebody know, a neighbor or a friend, know how many and what you have on your property? This is a photo of one of these little sticker things that you get. They're static clings or window clings stickers. You can get them at a lot of places. Sometimes you get them for free. Sometimes, they cost only a couple bucks. But these are actually really nice to have on an entryway to your door, because not only does it let people know that there were pets in the house, but if you have a house fire or something like that, or you're not home, if somebody's coming to check on the house, they will know that there is somebody in there, or an animal or animals in there. Especially if you're not very close to your fire departments or to your neighbors that might, not know otherwise. So first we start with making a plan. Just like any natural disaster or any type of evacuation plan, you need a plan in place. This plan should be written down because if there is an emergency, it makes it easy to follow for everybody in the household if there is something written down. And it could be very basic. You don't have to write down a book or anything. You can just say, in case of fire, go here. In case of, earthquake, go here. But just sort of a plan. And then you need to practice it. And does this plan, where are you going? And where you going, will they accept your pets that you have? If not, where do your pets go? Where do the animals on your property go? But this plan needs to be practiced. So you're not going to evacuate, right? But you're going to practice getting them into crates, getting them into the trailer. How much time does it take? If you have to get them into a boat, will they reliably get into a boat? This is the kind of stuff you practice and you train for. And almost any trainer will help you train animals for this. So if you're having trouble training them for something that you would like to do, reach out to somebody. Are their vet records up to date? And this is for all animals across the board, not just dogs. So dogs, cats, any other exotic animals that you have in your house, and any of your farm animals, if they have vet records, are they up to date? If they are, where are they kept? Do you have a digital copy, or do you only have paper copies? Does your vet have a copy? Your vet should have a copy. Do you have the information for your vet that you wear or that you use? Are your pets microchipped or wearing tags? It is a very good idea to once a year sign into your company that does microchips and make sure that your pet's microchip information is up to date. That includes photographs. Just because they're wearing tags when you evacuate doesn't mean they stay on them. So that microchip is very important of getting your animals back to you if needed. Do you need medications or anything special for your pets? Special muzzle. A muzzle is a special a tool. Does your dog need it? Do you have this? Do you have everything together? Any medications? Take what you have. Make sure your dosages are written down. Do you have a crate for smaller pets? So the smaller pets, I mean, dogs, not all dogs are small. I understand that. So dogs, cats, rabbits, and smaller. All of these animals should be crate trained. Crate training is easy, even if you never ever use a crate normally. Crate training in emergency situations is very important. If you have to go and leave your pet at an evacuation center, they will be crated, no matter if they're crate trained or not. So having your pet already be crate trained is a valuable skill that they have, so they don't freak out, so that they can be a little bit easier, not as high anxiety while this whole entire process is going on. For animals smaller, from cats, rabbits, and smaller, you should be traveling with them in a crate. I know there's some debate about dogs, and I'm not going to get into that debate, but some people, if you're evacuating, you might not have room for everything, so you kind of have to pick and choose. Your smaller animals definitely in a crate. Your dogs, if you have room, yes, put them in a crate. It makes it easier. So make sure your pets are crate trained. That's a very good reason to have them crate trained. Again, your plan is going to be specific to you. No two plans are alike. Nobody has the same animal makeup in their house or the same requirements that you have. So make sure you have a plan. And I know I have horses, dogs, cats, and I have chickens on here, especially where I am at right now, where Moondog is at in Alaska. A lot of people have chickens and poultry for food and for eggs. So your evacuation plan should include all of the animals on your property. Make sure you know what you're going to do. It would be nice if we had a forest fire, if you had to evacuate, you come back and your chickens are still alive. Wouldn't that be nice, right? So you want to make sure that your evacuation plan is not only for your physical human family, but for all the animals on your property. And it is going to be specific to you. So we're going to talk a little bit about a to-go bag. And here is a picture of my to-go bag. This is my personal to-go bag for one dog. This is what I have kind of for everything. If I'm working in the field, I have something like this in my car for one dog. If I have one dog with me, I can possibly stretch to 2 dogs with one to-go bag. Your to-go bag can also be a tote. Okay? It is okay to have a tote. The more animals you have multiple animals, multiple dogs, you might have everything in a tote. It might just be easier that way. And you store some old stuff. And so here's a picture, and we'll go through what's in it on the next slide. But there's a picture of the to-go bag spread out, where you can see what's in it. Everything is pulled out. And then I have it sort of compacted together on the other picture. So the to-go bag, what's in a to-go bag? My to-go bag is an old backpack. Honestly, this backpack is close to 40 years old. It's from when I was in middle school, and for some reason it just kind of hung out in my stuff that traveled with me from place to place throughout my life. It's very well used. It's probably not going to make it this year. I'm going to have to change bags, but it doesn't have to be anything special, right? This is an old backpack. Of course, they made them better back then, so it lasted. Today's backpacks don't quite last as long, but still, same thing. Old backpack, don't worry about it. It could have a rip in it as long as the rip is a place where nothing falls out. It could be dirty. It could be, doesn't matter. Duffel bags work really well too. You need to have food for your animal, for each animal, for a few days. So in this picture, you can see there's it's a backpacking bear vault for dog food. Vittles makes that one. And I can get 9 cups of food in there of kibble. Kibble, even if your dog does not eat kibble, kibble is a very good emergency backup. Not the best quality if you're feeding raw, right? But there are really good kibbles out there. But it is a really good backup. It is food. It is a food. If you put kibble though in a bag or in a container like that, you have to switch it out. So every couple months, you're going to have to switch out that food. You can vacuum seal food in a bag if you do not feed kibble, or feed, or you just want to have a to-go bag ready for a long time. You can actually vacuum seal some kibble in a bag, and you could get a good year or 2 years out of it that way. But just remember, you need to rotate that food out. But you should have some food for a few days for every animal that you're taking. Any medication that you have should be in there. Bring your bottles. Make sure you have the amounts that they're taking, how many times a day they're taking. That stuff should be together. Put it in a little baggie. Your pet first aid kit, if you need one, if you have one already put together, there's lots of information about different first aid kits that you should have. Go for the ones for backpacking, because items in an emergency kit for backpacking are a little bit broader than one for a house. And if you are evacuating, you're not going to be at your house, right? So most of the supplies are pretty much the same, but first aid kit's always a good idea. You only need really one of those, no matter how many pets you have, just because, but it's a good idea to have one in there. You need harnesses, leashes, and muzzles. If your animal wears a harness, then have an extra harness in there. If you have, make sure you put an extra collar in there. I don't think I have collar on my list, but make sure you put an extra collar in there. If that collar has an old tag on it, even if it's hard to read, that's even better, right? Make sure you throw an old leash in there. Does not have to be the best leash in the world. You can see in my photo I have a slip lead, and then I also have a long line, a puppy long line. Doesn't matter. You want a leash in there for every animal. And then if your dog requires a muzzle or is muzzle trained, please put your muzzle in your to-go bag if they are not already wearing it. Depending on the depending on the point of year that you are evacuating, you might want to include a coat in there, or depending on your type of dog, the dog breed, or cat, or whatever. Coats, vests, shoes. Having shoes is actually part of your first aid kit. These are very inexpensive booties that I throw in there. It's good if they cut their paws, or if you're going to be walking over an area, let's say you had a lot of broken glass, you might be able to put those booties on and help save their feet, right? You wouldn't walk through there barefoot, so don't assume that your dog would either. Coats and vests, like I said, depends on the type of year, depends on what they're trained for. My guys work in the field. We have some reflective vests for ours in our emergency kit. I always throw the reflective vests in. If our emergency happens when it's a little colder, because I have elderly dogs, we do throw a coat in. Doesn't hurt, right? Can also use it as a bed for them to lay on if needed. Make sure you have toys. Toys are often forgotten in to-go bags, but toys will relieve stress and anxiety if you are sitting somewhere waiting, or if you are in an evacuation center. Even if your dog has to stay in a certain area and you stay in another, having a toy to be able to go out and play with them for 5 minutes now and again is going to release a lot of that anxiety and stress. So have a toy. Grab a couple different things depending on what they like to play with. In your bag, you're going to grab a blanket or a towel or a camp bed, anything like that. Again, something that smells like them. None of this stuff should be clean because you want the scent on it. Just something for them to lay on. And this would be per animal. So if you, towels make great, great little things. Of course, you can dry them off, but it's also a great little bed area that you can kind of lay down for them. In this particular go bag, we have a backpacking bed just because we have it. Make sure you have water. If you have time to put together a to-go bag, you should be able to at least have some water beside it. So a gallon of water is not really enough water. That's what's posted in this picture. It's not really enough water for very long, but at least it is some to start with, right? If you need to ration it, you can ration it. Now, you should have enough water for approximately 3 days for each pet that you have. So, um, depending on the size of your pet, depends really on how much water you have. We'll kind of talk about transportation later and how much you can bring with you, but that should be included at least with your to-go bag so that you can grab it if needed. So with that, any travel bowls, just something to make it a little easier. Dogs will eat out of almost anything. They'll drink water out of anything, but make sure, if you have time to put together this to-go bag, you're going to throw in some bowls. Throw in some of the freebie ones. Even if you don't use them very much, they were freebies, so that's fine. Vet records, I have down here either paper or on a USB. Paper will get wet, so if you have it on a paper, make sure that it is in a Ziploc bag to try to keep it dry. Even if you're going from a forest fire, always a chance of things getting wet. So USB, same thing, make sure you put it in a little Ziploc baggie so that it stays dry. But that way it has your vet records on there in case your dog ends up somewhere else. And then, yes, and a crate, and then waste bags. You still want to pick up poop if you can, depending on where you're at, and try to keep your area clean. This is a basic to-go bag. This to-go bag in our house, because I put some old stuff in there that we don't use every day, this to-go bag is ready to go, I would say 90% of the time. I do have to remind myself, and I have it written on a calendar, when to go through and see if I need to update anything in there or change things out. And then when we get the notification that something is happening in our area, we have forest fires. So if we are very close to a forest fire coming into our area, we are going to be getting ready ahead of it so that we're ready to evacuate whenever we have to. But for an emergency evacuation, you want to be able to just pick this up and go and not think about it. So, having this stuff together, having some old things like if the collars don't fit right anymore, if the harness maybe doesn't fit right anymore, but you have it with you, right? Old worn out things, not necessarily time to throw them away, but if you've upgraded and all their stuff still fit them, just throw that old stuff in a to-go bag, just so you're ready to go in a moment's notice, or that it'll take very short time for you. And if you're getting ready to evacuate, you're really not thinking clearly. So having this stuff already pretty much together is going to help in that process as well, because you don't have to think about it. Then you maybe only have to think about the water and food part, but everything else is sort of in there. In your vet records, make sure that you have the veterinary clinics that you use. You have their phone number, you have their address, you have the vet that they see. Because somewhere there's going to be some records. So that way, if your records are not up to date, at least you have the vet's office listed. And then you need to think about transportation. And, what do you have for transportation for all of your pets and you and your family? Are you taking multiple vehicles? Are you taking one vehicle? Do you have something like a trailer or a camper? Let's go to the next slide. A car, a boat. Boats, depending on where you live, a little skiff type boat is great as an evacuation tool if needed, right? I used to live in a valley that we got flash floods often, and we always had boats, kayaks. I had stuff set up. I had, when I got the little skiff, that's why I keep that around, because it's a good evacuation tool if needed. But what are you going to be evacuating, and what vehicles? ATV, depending on where you are. Is it an ATV? Is it an ATV in a trailer? Is that your mode of transportation? Do you have a car or truck? Do you have a box trailer or a horse trailer or anything like that that you would be including, or a dog trailer? Or do you have a camper? Campers make great evacuation vehicles because everything is in them. So if you can plan ahead of time, a camper is a great evacuation vehicle, right? Can everybody fit in the evacuation vehicle? Or are you taking multiples? That all has to be part of your plan. Who's doing what, who's getting who where, all that kind of stuff is part of your plan for your individual family, individual house. And then, do you have a place to go with the vehicle? Do you know where you're going? Are you going like to a campground? Are you going to a friend's house or relative's house? Are you just going and hoping to pull off the side of the road once you're out of the danger area? We don't know, but do you have a plan? You should have a plan at least to where to go. And that kind of leads into my last slide, is our emergency contacts for both you and your pets. So you're going somewhere. Your emergency contacts should know your plans even without you calling them ahead of time. And this is really easy to set up. These are going to be the same emergency contacts that you have for everything. You have on your hospital records, you have maybe on your phone. This is an emergency contact, right? A lot of times it's your parents if they're still alive, it's an aunt or uncle or grandparent, it might be your kids. But some sort of emergency contact, they don't have to live with you, they don't have to live by you, right? It's just somebody who would know where you would be going. So they might not know exactly where you're going, but they would know that, hey, if there is an earthquake and then they're going to be, their house is in a susceptible area. So right after an earthquake, they're going to go and they're going to evacuate to this area over here. Now, who knows where they're going to be, but they're more than likely going to be in this town, or they're going to go to this area. It's easier when you're trying to find them. If you're in a camper, where would you be heading? And this might change all the time. So you might have to have this discussion every year because things change. And I can give you an example. We had really bad forest fires a few years ago, and my family lives in a different state. But I called them and I told them, and I said, because they asked me, where would you go? If you had to evacuate, where would you go? And my response was, oh, okay, if we have to evacuate from here, because this is where the fires are happening this year, I'm going to go this way. I'm going to go to this area. Hopefully we can get into one of these campgrounds, but I'm going to go into this area over here. That helps, right? Doesn't have to be specific, but make sure that somebody knows where you would be going, whose house you would be going to, where would you be going, where would there be a good chance of finding you. They should know your friends, who to contact. If they don't live in the area, they should know some people, at least have a list of people in the area that they can contact. Now we can kind of do that through Facebook, but it's very helpful if there's somewhere that there's numbers or they can have contacts to try to find you. Hopefully you have time to grab things, to grab a cell phone, or that you're getting ready and you can back up, do a battery backup so that you can take it with you to charge your cell phone, and then you can call whenever you get to wherever you're evacuating from, or call in the process. But that's not always necessary. So make sure your emergency contacts sort of have an idea. Now, and my last point comes back to microchipping your animals that can get microchipped, right? Or if you have an emergency contact number on an animal, make sure that you trust your emergency contact. If your animal is chipped, there is a spot on that registration on the database to list an emergency contact. And what would happen is if they scan that and they in a situation, that information will come up. So whoever they is, the shelter, the animal control, whatever organization is helping, They should be able to scan you for a chip for your pet, and they should be able to see if they can't reach you, then there should be a secondary number, emergency contact number that they can reach. Trust your emergency contact to make the decisions for your pets in case of emergency if people can't reach you. That is a very important role to have, is being that emergency contact. So whether that is, coming down and picking up your pet, or being responsible, or giving the okay for XYZ, it is what it is. But make sure you have that emergency contact information up to date on your pet's microchip, so that if if you cannot be reached physically, if your pet and you get separated, that the emergency contact can make a decision for you as far as where your pets are going, or how to pick them up, or how to care for them. Make sure they know all this stuff. It's kind of a lot of information. It's a lot of information. If you ever have any questions about emergency plans, reach out to your local Red Cross area, Red Cross organization. Any of your local emergency management offices should have some information, and it would be a little bit more specific to your area, because every natural disaster is going to be a little bit different. Whether you're leaving on ahead of time, if you guys are planning for the disaster to happen and you're leaving ahead of time, versus an emergency grab and go type thing, there's going to be a little bit different information for each one. So make sure you reach out, check, be vigilant, think about this ahead of time, make sure you practice. If your plan involves getting animals into a trailer or into a boat, make sure you practice that every once in a while, so that when the time comes, you will be stressed, but the animals will not pick up on it as much, because they will be already, okay, they're telling us to go in the boat. So make sure that you have time to practice, that you have everything set up, and I hope that everybody has a good management plan. Reach out to trainers. If you really need a management plan for your animals, reach out to a local dog trainer. We do some consulting. I'm more than happy to sit down with anybody, and I'm more than happy to sit down with anybody and kind of come up with a plan for you that's tailored a little bit, and your plans will change all the time. Most trainers would be happy to help you train if you need to train an animal to get into a trailer, get into a boat, get into a crate. That is all stuff that we can do. So please reach out if you need help, and I hope that people who are watching this never really have to evacuate, but be prepared.